Telecoms Group MTN is seeking a meeting with Nigerian regulators after being rapped on the knuckles by the Nigerian Communications Commission about its mobile tariff policy. MTN has been described as dominant in that market and seems to be attracting scrutiny. David Lurkey is from Avior and a specialist in telecoms amongst other sectors. Welcome, David. Good to have you here.
Good evening.
So it's an interesting situation. MTN having a 44% market share in Nigeria, and I think some discomfort. They have not been accused of abusing their market dominance, but that could be the next step.
It could be. I don't think so. I think the regulators just sort of making some noises here. What the regulator maybe forgets is that over the last 18 months or so, prices in Nigeria have more than halved. So, you know, the telecoms market there is very competitive. Prices are moving down despite double-digit inflation in the country. So I don't think it's anything to get too worried about.
It's almost a perverse accusation. They've been accused of discomfort with their pricing policy, but because they've dropped prices, not because they're increasing prices in any way, right?
This is it. I mean, Erica, just to frame this, David, for our viewers, it was only a few months ago, might be a little bit longer, when the Nigerian Communications Authority actually asked all the participants to cut the interconnect rates. And the degree of the cut was determined by the size of that player in the market. So MTN is the biggest player, got the biggest cut in interconnect rates. Now we've got a very competitive situation in Nigeria. Do you think they're actually, as alluded to in this allegation, they're actually pricing this below market in order to win market share?
I certainly don't think they're doing it to win market share. I think they're probably doing it to keep market share. One of the smartest things you can do as a telco operator is make sure that all the traffic, or as much of the traffic as possible, is on your own network. So instead of in South Africa, say, phoning from Vodacom to MTN, and the two operators kind of splitting the revenue like that with the interconnect rate, you rather call from MTN to MTN, and then obviously MTN would have the full 100% of that revenue on their own network. So that's kind of what they're aiming for. To do that, it's very similar to the way it's always been in this country. On-net calls are cheaper than off-net calls. The regulator there is just saying that the gap in pricing between on and off-net calls is too wide.
But the benefit, obviously, is that being the biggest operator, the economies of scale, I'm sure they enjoy. I think it was they referred to the 40% market position that they have in Nigeria. Doesn't that scale, like as in mining, afford them a degree to discount prices further than any of the other competitors?
Absolutely. Certainly, the official NCC stats in Nigeria, the regulator's stats there, are that MTN has 44% market share. It's actually closer to 50% by customers, and if you do it by revenue, it's probably somewhere 55 to 60% of the market. So certainly the largest player there. Yes, they are able to price at a level that their competitors would be unable to, but of course, rather for them they'd work it the other way around, where they will price as high as possible before the competition starts pricing below them, and in that way they'd make the highest margins. It's a beautifully profitable business they have in Nigeria.
Well, I was going to ask you if you could put into context, how important is Nigeria to MTN in its portfolio?
I think it makes up around about 40% of operating profit. South Africa, by comparison, is about 30% of MTN's operating profit.
So is it an unintended consequence of something that the regulator actually did with the interconnect, asking the competitors to drop the interconnect fees?
No. So what happens is you can interpret or understand interconnect as the wholesale rate, and you would see that as the floor on pricing that the other operators can charge. So of course, if you are to use a South African example, Cell C as the small operator here, most of the calls from Cell C to, say, Vodacom most calls would be from Cell C to a different network. Therefore, if the interconnect rate is, once upon a time in this country, it was a little over R1, then obviously Cell C can't charge less than R1 because then they're making losses before they've covered any of their costs. So really a lower interconnect rate makes any market more competitive. by effectively dropping the wholesale rate of calling.
David, if you were to just lift up out of this, and if you were to take MTN and compare it with Vodacom, different animals, just in terms of the history, in terms of the Africa strategy, in terms of the dividend history. So how would you describe the two if you were to compare them?
All right. Not quite so different anymore in terms of dividends. Certainly MTN's paying very nice dividends nowadays, pushing 75% to 80% of their profits out as dividends. Vodacom's closer to sort of 90, 95. However, really what MTN has done very well is they started on the back foot in South Africa as the second operator. They got their license after Vodacom, but they have really exploited Africa beautifully. They've taken some very big gambles. Older investors will remember when MTN was trading at somewhere around 2 Rand a share. After they went into Nigeria, they had to pay for the license twice. There was a lot of chaos there. Vodacom saw this, decided that maybe these markets weren't entirely to their taste. MTN took the big risk. They've got the very big reward from it. Don't completely discount Vodacom in Africa though. Still South Africa's over 80% of their profits, but between their operations in Mozambique, Tanzania and the DRC, there's some very nice growth coming through there.
We've got Vodacom. Obviously, you mentioned MTN taking those big risks. Some of the risks have come back to bite them. Obviously, in Iran, I wanted to just see, is there any relaxation around being able to get the company to repatriate the money it's made in Iran, or is that still money that's essentially locked in the country?
That money for now is still locked in that country. MTN has been in negotiations with the Iranian authorities and the Americans because they've been putting some sanctions there for quite some time already. Who knows when that will change? Certainly I don't.
We kind of saw the announcement by Turkcell that they were canning the case that they'd brought against MTN in the States. The market reacted, I guess it was a positive reaction to that news. Is that the end of the saga as far as it goes? Is this the end of the road? Because you kind of get the sense that it was a case of it's over for now, but let's see if Turkcell might want to take this up in another format, perhaps in another jurisdiction or in another way, to try and, I guess, compensate themselves for the money they felt that they've lost out on.
It's not entirely over. Turkcell has said they're going to have a look at other options. I think they're starting to run out of options. They tried to have the case in Iran, a number of years ago. They've tried to have it in the States now, in Washington or in the District of Columbia. That hasn't worked. Really, I think any more court cases will really be clutching at straws. I certainly think MTN did very well by organising the Hoffman Commission, which was officially independent, to have a look into the matters. They came back and said, look, there's no evidence of wrongdoing. So really, I think investors can put that to the back of their minds.
Vodacom's got results out soon. Is it next week? Your expectation?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, your expectation, David?
Well, they've already given guidance that headline earnings will be up 20 to 25%. So the midpoint of that guidance, you're looking for somewhere around R8.60 per share. Certainly a little bit ahead of the market's expectation, maybe 1% or so, which is quite a lot for a company as beautifully predictable as Vodacom. I'm expecting actually quite a good set of results there. They have come under quite a lot of pressure in South Africa. Certainly, if you just ask around your social circles who has a Cell C contract now versus maybe a year ago before they started pushing pricing, you'll see something of a difference. Vodacom, however, continues to do very nicely. Where they're really succeeding is through pushing smartphones lower and lower into the market, having more and more people using data, using the internet. And really, in most of South Africa remains a third world country, and the way those people access the internet is not through a PC or a laptop, it's through a cell phone. And they're taking advantage of that growth quite nicely, which certainly compensates for the pressures that have been in place on voice business.
And having said that, so on the data side, that continues to be a growth driver for all the telcos, and I think almost a surprise, results season after results season, that it still plays such an important role. And just having looked at the Nigerian numbers data, they're also playing an important role, David.
Indeed, and I certainly believe it's going to carry on playing an important role for a number of years to come. If you look at what the operators in America are achieving at the moment, they're still in the sort of 15 to 20% range for data revenue growth every year, and they are a lot further down that road than we are in this country. So I think it's quite positive there.
It's almost something I got the sense that Vodacom hasn't really been given full credit for. Would you say they're doing the best out of the big three or big four, if you include Telecom, to grow revenues from data?
I would say them and MTN are both pushing very hard. What we've seen is probably through 2012, MTN's data growth was better, but it was off a lower base. It really just comes from their different positions in the market. Vodacom, as the very first operator in South Africa, has better share of the very high end, and then MTN's got better share sort of in the middle to lower end of the market. And so obviously Vodacom benefited first, as wealthy people were the first ones to get smartphones. MTN has now seen that, and now they're pretty much in line with one another. But certainly mobile's the way that data is going.
We've seen the price war that Alan Knott-Craig, as the CEO of Cell C's, introduced to the market, and then I think I read an article a few weeks ago talking about now that the sort of pockets are a little bit empty, that's going to have to calm down a bit. For the consumer, probably not a good thing that a price war has come to an end, but as investors, could investors in MTN and Vodacom breathe a little easier? Do you think that's kind of run its course?
We'll have to see whether it's run its course. You never know whether Cell C might be able to get hold of some more capital. The problem in this game for small operators is Vodacom will spend somewhere around 7 billion rand on its network in South Africa this year. MTN will spend over 5 billion rand. Cell C at best can spend 2, and really they always will be running from behind. A very difficult game. In terms of the price war in South Africa, I think it's not quite completely over. Certainly I think those of us who are contract subscribers will probably see a little bit more fun. Probably the prepaid side of the price war you can expect to be pretty calm from now.